State your full name.
My full name is Ignace Rosenberg.
And what do people call you?
People call me Bob.
How did you get Bob?
I don't know. I think my wife didn't like Ignace, so she sort of got into habit of calling me Bob.
Perfect. And I'll say just for the record, my name is Josh Friedman, filming, and we're here today with both of your daughters, with Nicole and with Monica, at Heritage Point. And today is March 28th, 2015. What is your birth date and where were you born?
My birth date is February 1st, 1930, and I was born in Czechoslovakia. Yeah. But Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. So,
in what town or what city?
Well, the city was Košice. It was about a smaller town, around 80,000 inhabitants.
Perfect. And what were your parents' names?
My parents' names, well, my father had the same name as I do. I inherited his name because he died before I was born. So his name was Ignace also. And my mother's name was Esther.
And what was her maiden name, do you know?
Oh yeah, her maiden name was Nagrasha. Yeah.
And were both of their families from Czechoslovakia as well?
Sort of, yeah, Czechoslovakia or Hungary, it shifted every 20 years.
Okay. How about siblings? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I have, I'm the youngest of four. Yeah, so I have, my oldest brother is still around, he lives in Beverly Hills. My second brother, he died, so, and then I had a sister, but she died in the Holocaust. So did my mother.
And what were your siblings' names?
So my siblings, my oldest brother, his name is, he goes by Phil, but his name was Solomon. And the second brother's name was Emmanuel.
And when did he pass?
He passed a few years ago, I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Although we called him Mandy. Yeah.
And your sister's name was?
His sister's name was Mady, or Miriam. But she, as I said, she died in the Holocaust.
What was life like before the Holocaust?
Well, we lived in a rather small town in Czechoslovakia, and then during the war it became Hungary. So life during the Czechoslovakian period, it was pretty good. There wasn't too much anti-Semitism, so we didn't suffer from that. And then after, in 1938, when the Hungarians took over, there was a lot more anti-Semitism. So, but we managed until the war in 1944, when they deported all the Jews, including my mother and my sister. And my brothers and I, we somehow, miraculously, we escaped.
So tell me more about the family then and the upbringing.
Yeah, okay, so as I said, my father had died before I was even born, so my mother had raised us. She had 4 children at the time, I was the youngest. So she had a hard time raising us. She had to make a living and also be the mother. But we managed, and I went to the Cheder every afternoon. Went to school in the morning, in the Cheder in the afternoon. And Saturdays and Sundays also it was Cheder time. Was
your family religious?
Yes, very much so. Of course, my father died even before I was born, as I said. My mother was very religious, not extreme, but very religious, yes.
And what did your parents do for a living?
My father was a salesman. And my mother, after he died, my mother became a partner in a soda water outfit. And that's how she made her living.
And you said you didn't really experience a lot of anti-Semitism growing up, or was there anti-Semitism where you were?
Oh yeah, there was quite a bit of anti-Semitism, especially after the Hungarians took over.
In what manner?
In what manner was the anti-Semitism? Well, they the kids around us, they sort of teased us, made fun of us. Later on, we had to wear the yellow star, but that was only after the Hungarians came over.
And in what year did the Hungarians come in Czechoslovakia?
And the Hungarians came in 1938. I was 8 years old then, yeah.
Tell me, this one's a little obvious, but what were some of the changes in your life once that happened?
When the Hungarians took over.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, it wasn't a very prosperous period for our family. So it wasn't very. We didn't have that much to eat, and in school we were discriminated against. As I said before, the kids sort of made fun of us, but it was tolerable.
Well, did maybe explain there was the Hader and then there was regular school too, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, as Monica mentioned, I went to Hader, which was like a Hebrew school, and we went there every day from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. And on Sundays, all day from 8 to 12 and 2 to 6. Even Saturday of course was the Shabbat, so we didn't have to go, but we still had to go for a couple hours in the afternoon. So
What language did they speak there?
in the I spoke Yiddish.
It's all Yiddish.
Yeah, it's all Yiddish, yeah.
So it was a religious Jewish upbringing, but different.
It was a religious Jewish upbringing. As I said, my mother was very religious, but not extremely so.
And she never dated or had a boyfriend or anybody after your dad?
Never after my father died, no.
And did your grandparents help to raise the four of you?
Well, not too much, the grandparents. It was my mother who had to keep the burden, and she somehow managed. Yeah, she somehow managed financially. It was hard, but she managed. Although one of us, of the 4 children, especially my older brother, he lived quite a bit with my grandparents. So there was just 3 of us instead of 4, so it made it a little bit easier on my mother.
Sure. Tell me about the yellow stars.
Well, the yellow stars started when the Hungarians came in 1944. And in 1944, the Hungarians had some kind of a right-wing, a fascist type of government. And they introduced the yellow stars that we had to wear, which we didn't until then, even though we lived under Hungarian regime during the war already for several years. And so we had to wear the yellow star. What was interesting is that in school, the boys there, it was a boys' school mostly, but they were always teasing us Jewish kids, and they made us feel that we were not equal to them or not the same as they are. And when the Hungarians came in and we had to wear the yellow star, we were really worried, this is going to be horrible. The boys are going to be making fun of us and they're going to tease us. But surprisingly, the first day we arrived to school with the yellow star on our clothes, we thought, this is going to be terrible. But they didn't say a word. They were just very sort of like felt sorry for us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would have happened if you didn't put the star on?
Oh, well, it was the law. We had to wear the yellow star. They would have, I don't know what would have happened. They probably would have taken us to prison, or they would have, I don't know what. It just didn't even occur to anybody not to wear the yellow star. And
this seems like an odd question, but where did you get the stars? Was there a location you had to go to, and they had the cloth patches? Mom went and had to sew them onto clothes. How did that work?
Well, the yellow star was every family sort of had to. I don't know where they got the material, but they cut it out and then they sewed it on by hand onto the clothes.
So things obviously got worse pretty quickly. It sounds like
it was getting really worse, right? After the Germans occupied Hungary. Right?
Take me to that time then. You said that your mother and sister did not survive.
No, they did not survive.
But the three boys did.
The boys did, yeah. My two older brothers, they were already gone from the house anyway. So they lived in Budapest, and they were involved in the Zionist organization, and they had some residence over there. And so in 1944, when things got really bad, my mother, she foresaw the troubles that were coming with the Germans having occupied Hungary. We knew that things are going to start getting worse. So she made me escape from Hungary to Slovakia, where I stayed with my mother's cousins for a while, for several months.
And when was the last time you saw them? Do you remember that? Or did you know why she was sending you away?
Well, yeah, we sort of knew that she was sending us away to avoid all the deportations and all the mistreatments of the Jews by the Hungarian regime, and the Hungarian regime was influenced or ordered by the Germans. So she saw what was coming, and so she was smart, and she made us go.
I'll get back to you in a second. Did your sister stay behind with her then?
My sister stayed behind.
Why did she keep your sister but send you away?
Well, I suppose being a girl, and she was at that time she was 16, so she sort of like didn't want to send her off into the world by herself as a girl. So me as a boy, she didn't matter. She wasn't so much worried. So my sister stayed with her, and she perished with my mother together.
Do you know where they were taken?
No, I don't know for sure, but probably to Auschwitz. That's where all the Jews were taken at the time.
Okay. So let's talk more about you then.
Yeah.
So you were sent to Budapest.
I wasn't really sent there. I escaped from Hungary to Slovakia, where I lived, as I said, with my mother's cousin. And
how did you travel? By train, by car?
Well, from Hungary to Slovakia, it was illegal. We couldn't. We just crossed the border at night. Just walked across the fields, and we got there. And then later on, from Slovakia, the Germans had occupied Slovakia also, and the remnants of the Jewish community was again under pressure. So we went from eastern Slovakia to the capital city of Bratislava, where we stayed for 2 or 3 or 4 months. And from there, the Germans started collecting the Jews again, whatever was left over, whatever Jews were left over. So I escaped. A cousin of mine who lived where I lived together with my mother's cousin's family, so we decided that we better get out of there, and it's dangerous to stay there. So we went separately. He separately and I separately went to Budapest. That was our goal. But I wasn't so lucky about that, because we crossed the border illegally, of course, at night without papers and through the fields. But I got caught, and they identified me as a Jew, So they put me into prison, and they took me to court even, that I crossed the border illegally. And the judge there condemned me to 2 weeks in prison for crossing the border illegally. So I was in prison for 2 weeks, which wasn't a very pleasant experience because they didn't feed us very much. Well, when I arrived to Slovakia, from Hungary to Slovakia, and I stayed with my mother's cousin's family, so I took one of the boys, one of the cousin's boy was also in Hungary before, as a place there where he was sort of like a refugee, and when the Hungarians started the deportations, he was stuck there, and so I arrived to Slovakia and I took his name, so I became sort of like the cousin, the new arrival cousin.
And they were a Jewish family too, obviously.
Oh yes, they were a Jewish family. It was a fairly religious family, just like us, not extreme, but religious.
And how much in hiding was the family at that point? I mean, it sounds like they were able to still be Jewish, even though it was difficult, but they didn't have to. You weren't hiding,
No, we didn't.
in hiding specifically. You just had to move to the house with them.
Yeah, right. I had to move to the house with them, and we didn't run away from being Jewish because apparently everybody had to have some kind of identification, and on the identification it was said that you were Jewish, and so we had to officially wear the yellow star, and whatever decree there was against Jews, we had to submit to that. Yeah, I left, and I could call him my uncle. He was really my mother's cousin. So I said goodbye to him, and he was very concerned. What about, where are you going? And they said that they gave up. They're not going to run away. They're going to be taken away by the Germans. So let's happen. Whatever will happen. But I said, no, I'm not giving up, I'm going. And I have some friends who are leaving also to Budapest, so I went with them.
What was your uncle's name?
Isidor Bunzel.
And his family then survived, it sounds like.
Well, his son, who was a couple of years older than me, and we sort of were hiding or leaving or running away together, although he didn't want me to follow him. He said, no, better to stay alone. But anyway, and then he had also a younger brother, but he was taken away, but eventually he did survive also after the war. He came back. But the cousins, though, the parents, they didn't survive.
So after you were in prison for the 2 weeks, you were released.
Mm-hmm.
Were you then able to escape again and get across the border?
No, at that time, that was in Hungary. And so they let me out from prison at the condition that I was going to Budapest. And in Budapest, they put me into some kind of I don't know, they called it the Torrents. It was sort of like some kind of a house where it was almost like a prison, but we were under surveillance and we couldn't just go anywhere we wanted to.
How many people were there? About?
It was a big place. It was one big huge room. There must have been about 80 people there.
And what, were they all Jewish?
They were, in that particular place, they were all Jewish. Yeah, they were all Jewish.
And how long were you there then?
I was there for about 2 or 3 weeks. And from there, after I was freed from leaving that place, that's when I went to Budapest. And I got a ride, I guess, on the train. I still had a few dollars, Hungarian money with me, so I was able to get to Budapest. And in Budapest, we went to the Jewish organizations, and they placed us me particularly, since I was only 14, they placed me in a boys' home, right? And I stayed there for a while.
So where were you exactly when you found out the war had ended? And how did you find out?
Well, we knew the war was ending because we listened to the news, and it was no secret what was going on outside, the world outside. And when the war ended, well, we knew the Russians were coming. We were watching and listening to the news to find out exactly where they were and when they will arrive to Budapest. And when they arrived to Budapest, then we were just, all of a sudden we were free. We could come and go as we wanted to. The Russians didn't bother us. We were more afraid, of course, of the Germans. And at that time, fortunately, the Germans were gone. So
you were freed when you were in this house, this internment area.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
By the Russian army.
By the Russian army.
Who came in, and was there an announcement? You can all go? Did they come in and arrest the German?
No. Somehow it was just understood that everybody was free and we could come and go as we wanted to. And we didn't have to worry about the Germans or the Hungarian authorities asking for papers or anything like that.
And how did you find out that there was help in Budapest? You said there was a Jewish organization.
Oh, well, how did I find out about that? I don't remember exactly, but it was, I suppose among friends, we knew that if we were to go to, that there were Jews left in Budapest. They took away all the Jews in Hungary in early 1944, but the Jews in Budapest, they left alone. So we knew that if we got to Budapest, we will be able to find shelter and food because there was a Jewish community there.
And how long were you in Budapest?
Not too long, because eventually I had an aunt and her husband, my uncle. We discovered each other. They found out that I was there, so they came to get me, and then I left this concentration camp like in Budapest, and I went with my aunt and uncle.
So was Mendy at the Tolans? Because you went someplace and Mendy was sort of like the group leader, right? Was that before?
That was afterwards.
Oh,
okay. Afterwards. Yeah. Mendy, my older brother Mendy, was in Romania.
Okay. Oh, so then keep going.
So when you're in Budapest, you probably had options.
Yeah.
You can go to Israel. You can come to the U.S. You could stay there. What were some of the possibilities for you?
Well, the possibilities weren't so great because I had no connections about going to Israel was illegal, so that was out until quite a bit later, until Israel's independence. And at that time, Israel wasn't independent yet. To the United States, that was just a dream. That was out of the question. Didn't even consider that. So our only choice was to stay where we were and to keep away from being caught and put into a concentration camp or something like that.
So the aunt and uncle who came to get you, who was that?
That was Piri and Tatsi, yeah.
So you stayed with them?
I stayed with them after they picked me up, but before that I was alone with the Zionist organization, and we were all going to go to Palestine at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But for me it didn't happen because my aunt and uncle picked me up, and at that time the Russians had already been there, so we were free from the Germans. So I went with them, with my aunt and uncle. I went with them and stayed with them several months. Yeah.
So you stayed with your cousins before, who you called aunt and uncle.
Yeah,
but this was a real aunt and uncle.
This was a real aunt and uncle, right, that I stayed with them after the war, right?
And that was in Budapest still.
Well, from Budapest we left to their whole old hometown in what used to be Czechoslovakia, but then it became different, the Ukraine and Slovakia and so forth. Well, I was there. Piri and Tatsi. Piri was my aunt, my father's sister, and her husband Tatsi, and they were relatively young also. But anyway, they survived, and so I stayed with them for a while, and that's when I was planning to go with the Zionist organization, go to Palestine, but that didn't happen because, for one thing, my aunt wouldn't let me go, and my brothers also were around, and they said, no, don't go, because they wanted to be around me and sort of oversee my life.
So before we get to how you got to the United States,
Yeah.
it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, things were bad, things were hard, but it sounds to me like a lot of other communities who got involved in the war earlier had it significantly worse. Does that than where you were at? Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, yes.
You were never in a concentration camp, correct?
That's right. So whereas the others were in a concentration camp.
Do you have a tattoo then?
No, I don't have.
So you don't have a tattoo. And your hometown,
Yeah.
where your mother and sister were,
Yeah.
if the people didn't escape, how many of them survived? Any of them?
Well, very few that I don't know of any, frankly.
All right, so it's a good thing you got out when you did.
I got out. Yeah, right.
What about the story when you were reunited with Shali and Mandy?
Well, I had two brothers, and both of them were involved in the Zionist movement. And during the war, the Zionist movement was helping to save the Jews and hide them and try to get them to Palestine at the time. So when I met my older brother, he was also in the Zionist movement. He was sort of very, very much involved. And I guess I was trying to also get it on a program that was going to take us to Palestine. But somehow, I don't remember why, but it didn't work. I didn't get to do that until after the war, with by some of my relatives from the U.S. came to visit, and they said, okay, well, we are taking you to the U.S. We're going to get you a visa to the U.S. And I had to wait for the visa quite a long time. But finally it came, and then we came to the U.S.
So when did you reunite with your brothers, and where did you see them?
Well, with my brothers, I reunited with I had two brothers. An older brother, I reunited with him also. It was after the war, after liberation. And
did you guys live together then? Did you guys?
no, because I lived with the Zionist organization, and they did too, but in different locations. So we didn't really live together. Yeah.
And then when did you go? You went someplace. You got word that Bunchi was going to come pick you up, right?
Yeah, that was a little bit later when we already were in touch with some relatives from the United States.
Oh, okay.
And but my cousin of mine who came to he learned that we were there in Hungary, so he came to pick us up, and he took us to Budapest, I guess, if I remember well. Yeah.
And how about education at that point? So you were 14 years old.
I was 14 years old. I didn't go to school at that time, so I was out of school by then for about a year. But after liberation and after living quote unquote free under the new Hungarian regime, which was by then a communist country, I had to go to school. So I went back to school at 14.
And then how long were you in Hungary before you left? Or in Budapest? How long were you there before you left?
Before I left for, I don't remember, a few months probably.
So you were still 14 when you left?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And you didn't come straight to America?
No.
Where did you go from there?
Well, we went to, we stayed in Hungary then with the Zionist organization. And until I discovered, or my family discovered me, so we discovered each other, and they took me with them. And after that, eventually I came out to the United States, and then I went to school.
And you were with your brothers?
Well, yes and no. My brothers went on their own, and I was sort of under the tutelage of my aunt and uncle.
And they came over with you?
Yeah, and they came over.
And did you stop in any countries between?
No.
No, but then first you went to Paris, right? When she took you to Paris, and then you...
Yeah, that's right. Yes, right. I lived in Paris for 8 years, actually.
That's what I was getting at. Yes.
Yeah,
So you spent the rest of your teenage years
in Paris.
Right, and
right.
what were you doing there?
Well, I was living with my uncle and aunt, and my wife too. Was in the family, and I went to school.
And what did you study?
Just the so-called secondary school, until I graduated from the so-called high school.
Did you find that you were behind in the education? Because
I was somewhat behind because I was out of school for 1 or 2 years, and then eventually. But eventually I picked up everything because it was the language. It was all in Hungarian, and I spoke Hungarian, so that was no problem.
Did you learn French while you were there?
But no, I learned French when I arrived to France.
Right, in Paris.
In Paris, right?
Yes.
I arrived to Paris. I didn't know half a word of French, and eventually I learned. I went to school also.
How many languages do you speak now?
Right now, I speak French, Hungarian, and English.
Not so much Yiddish anymore.
Yiddish, not too much. I hardly ever speak Yiddish, so...
Abyssal.
Abyssal, yeah. Sehr Abyssal. Sehr wenig.
So tell me about your wife you met in Paris. What is her name?
Her name is Judith.
And her maiden name?
Her maiden name is also Rosenberg. She's my cousin.
How did you meet then? Through the family, it sounds like.
Through the family, right? After the war, we came and we got together with the family, and there she was also.
And you didn't know her before the war?
No, I didn't know her before the war.
What's the age difference between you and her?
Just about a little over a year. Yeah.
And what was she doing at the time in Paris?
At the time when we met,
Mm-hmm.
well, she was just a student. She was in high school, I guess, and then eventually she became a teacher.
What year was that then when you met?
Well, we met in 1940, end of 44, 45.
And how many years have you been married then?
Oh, we've been married 63 years, isn't it? Let's see. 64.
Where were you married?
In Paris.
So how long were you in Paris then before you came to the United States?
Oh, in Paris, I lived in Paris for about 8 years.
And
Yeah.
you were married there?
I was married there, yeah, and I lived there. I went to school there at first, and then we got married, and then I got a job and worked there.
Were there any problems being Jewish after the war?
No, none at all.
And what made you decide to come to the U.S.?
Well, for one thing, we had some relatives here, and secondly, conditions in Europe were very poor. It was hard to make a living, and so coming to America was coming to they say the golden Medina, the golden land. So everybody tried to come to the United States, and we managed to come because we had some some relatives here.
And how did you get here? You were on a boat.
On a boat, yeah. So
How long was the trip?
we came legally, we got some visas, and we had a passport, and then the boat trip was about a week, 8 days, I think. Yeah.
And was it just the two of you, you and your wife, or were there more traveling with you?
No, it was just me and my wife.
Were her parents still alive?
Yeah, they were alive, but they didn't come. They didn't get any visa, so they stayed in Paris. And my wife and I, we came just by ourselves. And here we had some relatives, so after we got here, I got a job, and she got a job, my wife did, so we established ourselves here.
And you came through New York?
No, we just came passed by New York, and we came directly here to California.
And where in California did you settle?
We settled here in Southern California,
Okay.
in the Los Angeles area.
And then
Yeah,
both of your children were born in Los Angeles?
yeah. They were born in
No, Nicole was born in Oakland, right? Because
Oh,
you were
that's-
already up
Oh,
at
that's
Berkeley.
right. Nicole was born in
Yeah.
Oakland, yeah.
So
But actually, we lived in Berkeley at
Yeah.
the time. Yeah, Nicole was born in Oakland just because the Kaiser Hospital was in Oakland.
So tell me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you were in sort of the Los Angeles area in Glendale,
Yeah,
and then Mommy decided that she wanted to go to some place called UC Berkeley, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that was how you went to Berkeley.
Yeah, that's how I went to Berkeley, yeah, because my wife was sort of an eternal student and she wanted to go back to the university. And
Which was unique at the time. How many women were in the university with her at the time?
oh, there were quite a few. I don't know how many, but it wasn't. It was
It was pretty unique.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that she was
yeah,
definitely the minority of
Yeah.
people
yeah.
studying. And then what did she get a degree in?
My wife's in teaching.
And she has a PhD in French literature.
And then what did you do for your career?
I went to optometry school, and then I became an optometrist, and then I became independent. I had an office, an optometry office, and that's how I made my living.
Where was the office?
I started in San Bernardino, and then I moved to Rancho Cucamonga.
And then how many children do you have?
These two.
These two right here. And how many grandchildren?
3.
What are their names?
Their names is Tommy, Ellie, and Grantley.
We'll ask you two, what years were they were born?
Tommy was born in 93, and Allison was born in 96, and Grant in 98.
How long have you been here at Heritage Point then?
I think it's about a year.
Okay. And you and your wife both moved here at the same
Yeah,
time?
we live here, yeah, except that she lives in a different, we don't live in the same apartment. She lives in the memory care unit.
You want to describe, Danny, how the menorah came to be? You brought it back from Israel, right?
Yeah. Well, we just picked it up when we were visiting Israel at one point, and we saw this menorah there, so we bought it.
Have you been back to Europe?
Yes, I've been back to Europe several times, yeah.
And have you visited what was your hometown?
Just once, yes, I did.
What was that like?
Well, it hasn't changed too much. Just that the people were not the same. We didn't know anybody there, so it was like really being in a foreign land.
You traveled many places, though, together with Mommy, right? You went all over.
Well,
Lots of traveling.
we traveled a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, you went a lot back to Paris.
Yeah,
And then
we went.
remember a couple years you would rent for a couple months an apartment and live in Paris.
What was her first language?
Judy's French.
It was French. And did she speak Hebrew?
No, she doesn't speak Hebrew. She speaks French, and she does speak some Hungarian. So, but we don't speak Hungarian to one another. We speak French. Yeah.
And Mommy also taught Spanish.
And she speaks Spanish, which she learned in school. And then she did teach Spanish also. She was mostly a French teacher, but she also taught Spanish
So she was teaching foreign language at high school level.
at high school, yes.
And also, that was, yeah, go ahead.
Well, that was after. She went back to get a PhD after they moved from Berkeley, settled in Claremont, and then she
Settled
raised
where?
kids for about 10 years or so, and then she went back. She went to USC and got a PhD. And then she tried for some time to become a university professor and got a few posts, but she was a little old, in terms of building a career that way. So then she ended up teaching at high school. She taught at a Catholic high school in Pasadena, and then she taught at Walnut.
And you're an optometrist.
Right.
You don't wear glasses now.
Not really, for reading mostly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Anything else you want to add?
No, not really. No.
Okay. Focus.
Very beloved person, when he was an optometrist, his patients all really loved him, and my kids think that my dad is the man. He's really cute and really sweet and kind, and my mom is like the whenever they want me to be brave, they say, be a Rosenberg, and that's like that comes from my mom's side, because she's very she's a fighter. Yeah, she wouldn't let any nonsense occur. My dad was always the gentle, very kind.
So that's what 63 years is, huh? It's very sweet. It's very sweet.